Okay, so the article I used was Digital Society, Auditing of AI, Legal and Ethical Technical Approach. And so for the first prompt, the prompt I used was, how can traditional financial auditing principles inform the auditing of AI systems, and what role might financial auditors play in the evolution of AI governance frameworks? The response ChatGPT gave me was, the article draws a direct link between the evolution of financial audits and the need for structured, independent AI audits. It notes that, like financial audits, AI audits seek to promote transparency, assess compliance, and build trust. Financial auditors who are trained to verify correctness and completeness and regulatory compliance, transferable expertise that can be extended to auditing algorithmic processes. As a future accountant or auditor, understanding these parallels could prepare you to contribute to emerging audit standards for AI, especially in regulated industries like banking, insurance, or healthcare. Um, for this particular prompt, I think reading this article in general gave me a deeper appreciation for how AI is reshaping the world of auditing, especially in terms of both the risks and the responsibilities that come with it. One of the biggest takeaways was the idea that AI audits are starting to mirror traditional financial audits, where the focus isn't just on verifying numbers, but also on ensuring systems are fair, transparent, and ethically designed. That immediately stuck out to me because, as someone going into accounting, particularly financial auditing, we already work in spaces where we assess risk and provide assurance. This means we're uniquely positioned to help define and enforce standards for how AI is governed, especially as more companies adopt AI tools and in their decision-making processes. Is there anything you
Yeah.
guys want to add on?
Yeah, I think that it falls in line with like the accounting procedure because like things like AI and what we'll talk about later in terms of blockchain, it kind of goes along the lines of like taking the tools that we have and building them and using them in a way that's within a certain set of standards or parameters. And I think that it's kind of like an information systems kind of thing where you make sure that all the data can get compiled and sorted in a certain way. And I think that's what is happening now and what will continue to happen more. It's just that the process is increasingly automated and done by artificial intelligence.
Anyone else want to add anything? Okay. Okay, so the second prompt I put was, in what ways might financial auditors need to evolve their skill sets to assess risk and compliance in companies increasingly reliant on AI technologies? The response ChatGPT gave me was, the article emphasizes that AI auditing is not just technical, it's also ethical, legal, and process oriented. Financial auditors will need to understand the AI governance structures, quality management systems, and risk assessment methodologies. As AI becomes more embedded in financial decision making, in loan approvals or investment algorithms, auditors will need to go beyond numerical accuracy and assess whether AI-driven decisions align with ethical standards and laws. This interdisciplinary shift will demand that accounting professionals engage with concepts like algorithmic bias, transparency, and automated decision accountability. For this one, I would say I liked how ChatGPT helped clarify how this article draws direct lines between traditional audit practices and new AI governance models. For example, the three lines of defense model used in financial controls is now being adapted to AI, where auditors will need to assess not just data, but the process and risk management behind AI systems. Do you guys want to add anything?
Yeah, like I see some parallels between the AI technologies and how like data gets compiled and
Mhm.
like the legacy computer tax programs that we have like as accountants. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you can fill out and enter data, but like interpreting that data after it gets compiled and sorted is also like well, the lion's share of the work. And one of the main reasons why like being a CPA is so important is because you're able to kind of justify and defend the reasoning that or the inputs or what the software had to say.
Mhm. Okay, and then the last prompt that I worked on was what responsibilities might auditors have in evaluating the social and ethical impacts of AI systems used by their clients, and how can this influence audit reports and public trust? The article highlights the growing importance of ethics-based auditing in addition to technical and legal reviews. This is especially important in cases where AI decisions can affect people's access to employment, housing, or healthcare. Auditors, traditionally seen as stewards of financial truth, may increasingly be tasked with ensuring clients are not financially compliant but also socially responsible. In your future accounting career, embracing this broader role could position you at the forefront of auditing practices that restore public trust in corporate accountability in the age of AI. Um, I kind of like how this directly ties into our course material on ethics, assurance, and internal controls. This article in general expands on these concepts in the digital space and pushes us to think about how auditing adapts when companies rely on automated systems or machine learning. And I think it's a future facing piece, and it makes me think that knowing both the technical side of AI and the assurance side of accounting is going to be a huge advantage in this profession.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that like using a combination, and that's what ChatGPT kind of highlighted, but like using a combination of both human and AI, like labor, can help mitigate potential blind spots that either of them have. So if AI might not be as good at interpreting something, then the humans can kind of shore up that end of the audit. And if humans are bad at like entering data or compiling numbers or sourcing data like accurately, AI can help with that. I think one of the biggest things is like just mistyping numbers or
Hmm.
some human error that doesn't happen with AI. That is important because especially in my experience, like I would do a tax return, and it's really important to make sure that the numbers that the clients give you are transferred over efficiently into the tax return. Because if you mess up an input, the partners won't be able to know like if the numbers are off. They'll just use what was inputted into the tax software and then justify it based on that. And so some of that risk can be mitigated if we can for sure nail down like this is 100% the numbers that the client gave us, 100% accurate, transferred over, things like that.
Yeah, I really,
Yeah, and it's
oh,
oh
sorry.
no, you go first.
Thanks.
You go first.
I really like that your prompt went a little bit deeper into the ethics-based auditing as well, because I think it's really important for us as young professionals entering the career to have an understanding that these systems that we may be auditing can actually impact real people, like it
Hmm.
says in the answer to your prompt. So I just really like that the answer really went a little bit deeper into that because I think that's just as important as the numbers.
Yeah, especially since it's new technology, and we just have to understand that AI is going to be a great tool, especially for figuring out and just really narrowing down the numbers that we need data-wise, and being able to find a larger range within a data entry set. But it's not going to be like the best at um, conveying what it finds to like shareholders and all that. So it's really important for, people to understand that the human aspect is going to be, if not like just as important, but maybe even more with the use of AI.
Right. Yeah, like even if it is 100% perfect at interpreting things, there's still, a human element um,
Hmm.
that kind of needs to be verifying things. And yeah, so I totally agree, Taylor. All right.
But moving on, so for the following prompts, I actually based it off the same article, the auditing of AI, legal, ethical, and technical approaches. Um, like he said, it goes over a framework for really understanding how AI systems should be audited and also just the overall importance of AI and auditing in systems and business. And for the fourth prompt, I wanted to ask AI more about the possibility of AI taking over human auditors in the future. Um, Chat's response was very interesting, saying that it is unlikely that it'll completely take over humans in the field, but it will significantly transform the profession. It explains how AI's biggest strengths, which can be automation routine and rule-based tasks like processing data sets and performing risk assessments, will take over the data analyst part of the auditing process, and that'll completely transform the industry. But it also admits that auditing is a lot more than that, stating that human judgment is essential for applying professional judgment, interpreting complex financial disclosures, assessing internal controls in a nuanced organizational environment, evaluating ethics and reasonableness of management assumptions, and then also being able to effectively communicate the findings to stakeholders. AI systems will not be able to completely take over the human ability to really give ethical reasoning or contextual understanding as well. And this answer basically goes with what we've been talking about up to this point, and that's that AI is more of a tool rather than a complete replacement. A very interesting way to put it to me is that AI, we're not going to be replaced by it, but we're actually going to be upgraded by it. So
Mm,
we'll be able to audit at a higher level and really focus on more of the parts of the field that involves assessing internal controls, but also the human aspect. We're going to need to apply that judgment towards what we observe in a certain business. Does anyone else want to add on to that?
Yeah, I think that like the creation of like new rules and guidelines is pretty unique to humans. I mean, I'm sure AI will eventually get there that to where AI can kind of come up with new things that would be advantageous to preventing fraud and things like that. But there still definitely is a need for, again, like you said, professional judgment and also just like the standardization of everything and making sure that everything is kind of on that same level so you're able to compare like companies and apples to oranges, things like that. I mean, you can't compare apples to oranges, but something like that. And then, yeah, standardization. So,
Yeah, especially, the technology it's not brand new, but it's relatively new. And so
mhm,
it's really important to really find that balance, especially in the beginning. Um, but to basically connect that prompt with the next one, I asked about AI kind of changing the structure and size of audit teams in the future. Um, Before I typed in this question, I felt like as AI probably will restructure and really alter how human auditors will go along their work by taking more of the data-centric workload. So in my mind, I thought that surely audit teams would probably shrink in size, but I wasn't really sure how. Chat GPT answered by emphasizing the reshaping of audit teams and also potentially thinning them out. Just because, like we said earlier, they can automate so much of the time consuming
mhm,
tasks that were brought up earlier that usually entry level staff would traditionally operate, but that work won't be necessarily necessary anymore. So yes, not as many staff level auditors will not be as needed, but instead a smaller number of people that have the right knowledge to use these new tech tools to take advantage of the faster and more accurate data processing. Chat brings up the traditional audit team, which includes many junior staff, manual tasks, senior review samples, and specialists. But an envisioned AI enhanced audit team would have fewer junior staff, AI performing the basic procedures, and then seniors now analyzing AI risk flags and data and AI specialists being embedded rather than being used sparingly. This response was interesting on how chat envisions the structure of the audit teams. From the book, it states that time-consuming repetitive tasks are done by the staff level auditors, as long as an emphasis on like the process of planning, evidence gathering, and then also audit documentation. It also talks about the audit teams being structured hierarchy wise with staff to partner, but with AI, from the ChatGPT prompt, I really see like the potential changes towards the entire structure of the audit team by introducing um, data and AI specialists with less human needs towards the time-consuming tasks and emphasis on the planning, evidence, and also audit documentation processes as AI can automate and accelerate the work done on those tasks. Does anyone want to add on to that?
Yeah, I definitely see the need or like the future where there's a larger focus on like education and more of like the higher up kind of decision making. I think that it's also like it's important to say that like a lot of the menial like repetitive tasks that AI is going to replace, AI is going to be 1,000% more efficient and useful for those tasks, especially because there's no, again, like you said, there's no human errors. There's also no human like there's no possibility for humans to kind of mess it up. So I think that the whole accounting profession as a whole, in terms of audit, is going to shift from kind of casting this really large net and kind of hoping you can find some specific thing with that, large net to being able to kind of narrow down what specifically are the risks and really kind of dive deep into them and make sure that everything is looking good.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
going to be really important to really have that AI knowledge with you if you want to get into this profession for sure. Anyone else? All right. So the next prompt actually has to do with substantive procedures and how in a financial AI audit, it can be used in a more technical sense. Previous prompts have really talked about the fact that AI can improve upon this, but I'm curious on the more technical side and how it can effectively and efficiently um, do this by being able to do full population testing. And Chat's answer gave a technical example with performing substantive procedures on a accounts receivable balance. Chat explains the steps that a human auditor would usually partake, which includes finding the sample of the customer balances, inspecting invoices, receipts, and performing aging and ratio analysis manually. However, with AI-enabled tools, it can scan the entire population for 100% of transactions using this thing called natural language processing, which can read and validate supporting documents, but then also look for and flag potential fraud or bias in write-offs and manual adjustments. And this can all be done at super fast speeds compared to a human doing this. This can be done by AI algorithm, which ingests entire accounting ledgers and records. And with the use of AI learning, it uses behavior patterns to cluster transactions and flag outliers. Um, AI creates a model of normal transactions, which are based on customer payment history, invoice timing, amounts, and credit terms. And then it assigns a risk score to each one and displaces the highest risk scores for human audit review. Um, I noticed how much opportunity there will be with the knowledge of setting up these AI algorithms and the training of AI with making sure the material it is training with is unbiased and then also on par with what is expected. So potentially more opportunities will open up for more AI-centric work in the auditing field. The process of the technical part of the reminded me of the audit data analytics, which does a similar thing of analyzing patterns and finding anomalies for helping in audit evidence gathering. I imagine the AI version will be at a bigger scale, quicker, and then also just more effective with more clarity. Um, Anyone else want to add? It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think that even if AI like is not useless, but if it's not as sophisticated as we might think it will be, I think it will still be largely beneficial because even if it can eliminate like 50% of the transactions that humans have to review and kind of make sure that that AI is 100% accurate in saying that there is no fraud here, or this is a above board transaction. That is going to help a lot in terms of the amount of hours that auditors will need to spend in order to like verify transactions. So even the smallest bit of automation and the smallest bit of AI being able to say something is for certain is going to go a long way in terms of changing the industry.
Totally. And then for my last prompt, I wanted to go into a little bit of a different direction and ask how data quality and data bias could affect the AI system when used in financial audits. Even from a personal use level with AI, there is some instances where I could tell that there was some sort of bad quality within the data that chat pulled from. After all, ultimately, especially with like a public AI system, it just pulls information from the internet, and sometimes that source may not always be reputable. The answer that chat gave me did mention that poor data quality is really going to be the very biggest variable in the effectiveness of AI in financial audits. Poor data quality is referred to as missing, inconsistent, or inaccurate financial records, and these things can result in unreliable AI outputs and flawed audit conclusions. But it also explains the problem with biasness in training data, saying that it can cause unfair risk assessments and red flags that are not appropriate. So the key here is to really critically evaluate data sources and really make sure that to design AI tools ethically. Simply put, by AI, bad data will lead to bad outputs. So already learning about audit evidence and data reliability, this answer really didn't surprise me. It's really important to assess where information is coming from and how accurate it really is. And those same principles seem to apply to AI systems as well. Also, with professional skepticism, it'll be really important in the future of auditing to really question inputs and verify outcomes from both audit evidence and also now AI evidence. It seems that AI will make certain auditor tasks a lot easier to navigate, but at the same time, there's a new responsibility of ensuring that AI is pulling its information from reliable sources.
Yeah, just to add on to your point, yeah, I think it was really interesting how you said that like bad data will lead to bad outputs. Regardless of how good AI is, like having, that's in that then that's true today as it's going to be true in the future with AI. Yeah, bad data is not good for like the outputs. And so there's definitely an emphasis for the need for like good data and how to verify that and make sure that it's all collected in a way that will give you the outputs that are like true and accurate.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to matter how advanced it gets if the data it's using or it's pulling from is bad.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay. We'll go into my prompts. So I did my prompts on the article about blockchain, and it does tie into AI as well. So I'm pretty sure it's just a part of the kind of the discussion as it evolves. So I asked what are some of the audit risks that can be mitigated with the use of a blockchain or digital ledger? And I'll just go over ChatGPT's response here. So blockchain and digital ledger technologies significantly reduce key audit risks by enhancing data integrity, transparency, and real-time accessibility. One major risk mitigated is data tampering or fraud, as blockchain's immutability ensures that once transactions are recorded, they cannot be altered or deleted, providing a secure and trustworthy audit trail. It also addresses the risk of incomplete or inaccurate data by offering a single source of truth where all participants access the same verified information. Real-time access to records enables continuous auditing, reducing risk of delayed detection errors or fraud. Additionally, blockchain eliminates inconsistencies in record keeping across systems by recording transactions only once on a shared ledger, minimizing the need for reconciliation. It also strengthens compliance by providing transparent, time-stamped documentation that supports regulatory checks. When combined with AI, blockchain further enhances audit effectiveness by identifying anomalies and suspicious activity in complex datasets, helping auditors detect fraud and other risks more proactively. These capabilities make blockchain a powerful tool in mitigating traditional audit risks and improving overall audit quality. I think the biggest thing here is just being able to kind of verify transactions in real time and because traditionally, auditors have to go back in time and kind of see how transactions played out. Whereas you could have a blockchain where everyone has access to it and see these transactions in real time. And even if nobody's like monitoring it, AI can absolutely alert or make a note of any transactions that kind of didn't really make any sense or could potentially be fraudulent. I think that the elimination of the inconsistencies in record keeping by recording transactions only once and like minimizing the need for reconciliation, that is really important too because you're just making sure that everything ties. But with one shared ledger, everything kind of has to tie, otherwise it shouldn't really go through. If the inputs are valid and correct. And so that's important. And then it also like it's kind of self-recording, so it strengthens compliance, right? Like it says in the next sentence, but like it provides a transparent timestamp documentation. So you can really use the data that is stored on the blockchain to like aid in your supporting documentation and make that a lot easier rather than kind of having to rely on a human to mark when things happened or something else. I think that the combination of AI and blockchain is really important too, because blockchain would just be kind of like a Google Doc, where everyone is able to add something to it. But AI would be the thing that kind of alerts auditors to look in a certain direction or verify a certain transaction should AI say that it was like kind of suspicious. Does anyone have anything to add for that?
I just think it's going to save so much time, just so much time, not having to every time look back in the past. So
Right.
really important.
Yeah, that continuous audit, yeah, not only like save time looking back in the past, but also like it's probably definitely more effective to audit as you go, right? Rather than kind of look back in time and ask people like, oh, what were you doing, on this day with this time with this credit card, like whatever. So just kind of being able to have that process be automated, or at least at the very least have the flagging of certain transactions kind of be automated is important. Okay.
Hmm.
Harsimran, did you have anything?
No, you can do the
Okay,
next
okay.
one.
So what are some of the ways that accountants can use this technology as a tool instead of having blockchain replace them? So we think about accountants as, the keepers of the ledger. They record transactions, they do like all that. And we really haven't seen this shift because, even in the 20th century, there was a general ledger that was a book and you would write down transactions and, make sure everything ties. And that kind of transferred over into the digital space, where you're able to have a ledger, where yeah, everyone can kind of interact with it, but blockchain is this completely kind of new thing that can verify transactions and make sure that everything is just that much more above board, and make sure that if things don't tie, then it can't be a entry on the ledger. So I guess the idea is that it's much harder to kind of introduce false transactions in order to make the books look a certain way. Because right in the olden days, you could just write down a transaction, and obviously you'd have to like have some supporting paperwork for it, but it's easy to write things down. And same thing for like an online, ledger. You can just type something in and just let it kind of get cooked, kind of get like layered into the books. But for blockchain, it's kind of that idea of like if there's not that supporting like not only documentation but supporting like um, assets that are moving around, and a verification that those assets have moved, then it's a lot harder to kind of replicate fraud or to introduce fraud. And then, are there any skills or advantages that are unique to human accountants that cannot be replaced by automation? So again, I was kind of trying to get at to the point I think Taylor was talking about as well. But just like, are there skills that are important strictly to humans that will not be able to be replaced by AI? And I think that it's important that it's kind of ironic that we're asking AI to tell us like what will not be replaced by automation. But it's important because, maybe AI can see something that we don't. Maybe it can see its own shortcomings. Maybe it's, self-conscious. I don't know. Or yeah, like you can, yeah. So accountants, this is what ChatGPT said. So accountants can view blockchain and AI not as threats, but as powerful tools to enhance their roles. Rather than replacing accountants, these technologies can automate routine and repetitive tasks, such as data entry, transaction matching, and basic compliance checks, freeing up professionals to focus on more strategic, judgment-based activities. For example, accountants can use blockchain to access real-time, tamper-proof financial data, allowing them to provide faster insights and better advisory services. AI tools can analyze massive data sets for anomalies or patterns, but accountants are still needed to interpret those findings in the broader context of business goals and regulatory frameworks. I think business goals is really important because I think that the regulatory framework will more or less be um, not only kept the same, but also uh, it's a lot easier for the AI to kind of check if things are within that regulatory framework or express things within a regulatory framework. But there's still need for like the findings of within the regulatory framework, meaning like a gap income statement. You're able to kind of contextualize the needs of the business within those regulatory frameworks. And so that is kind of a niche that accountants can use, just being financially literate and being able to kind of interpret those things. So, moreover, there are distinct human advantages that automation cannot replace: critical thinking, professional judgment, ethical reasoning, and the ability to understand nuance in client relationships remain uniquely human skills. Accountants also bring contextual awareness and adaptability. Quality is critical when navigating ambiguous scenarios, applying evolving accounting standards, or advising clients on complex financial strategies. As the technology evolves, the accountant's role will shift from number cruncher to trusted advisor and tech savvy strategist. To stay competitive, accountants should upskill in areas like data analytics, blockchain literacy, and AI tool integration while leveraging their irreplaceable human strengths in interpretation, communication, and ethical decision making. So, again, I think that the creation or the adaptation of regulatory frameworks is something that's unique to humans. And the ChatGPT response also kind of highlights it a little bit, but applying evolving accounting standards or navigating ambiguous scenarios. That's important because, if things are left up to chance, we talk a lot about having professional judgment and being able to look at a new scenario and kind of retrospectively apply or proactively apply what the previous regulatory framework is onto something completely new. Again, AI might be able to do that one day, but at least for now, AI is very reliant on previous data that it's already analyzed and kind of combed through in order to produce an answer. And so we haven't really seen what happens if it's a proactive thing that hasn't seen before. And then what I made a little note of is I said rather than compromise the accounting industry and the work that accountants do, AI and blockchain can be used to help mitigate risks and eliminate human errors in the reporting and audit process, like we've talked about. And then while these tools are a little bit more advanced than what we've seen before, it's no different than a calculator in the sense that it mitigates more simple human errors and oversights. And I think that's important too. I wouldn't say that it would be a little bit different to compare a calculator or a computer putting in numbers to an AI putting in numbers. But I think it's that idea of the evolution of kind of the human tools. I remember watching a documentary in about Toy Story because that was the first 3D animated movie, and all the animators were kind of upset because they thought that this new technology, this 3D animation technology, was going to take their jobs, automate their jobs, make it so that there's less of a need for that. But it actually expanded this whole world of 3D animation and people that are able to kind of be think creatively and think beyond kind of that 2D animation kind of like ideology almost. Anyone have anything to add on that? Okay.
I really like the calculator analogy personally.
Sure.
That's a
Yeah.
that's a great way to see it.
Yeah, and I think calculator is probably a little low tech too, but I think that it's an idea of like I don't know tools and things that like we talk about like human errors being mitigated, right? Calculators have mitigated a lot of human errors, just as AI will be able to mitigate a lot of human errors. So All right, Ariella, you're up.
Awesome. So, like Simon and Taylor, I did my prompts based off of the Digital Society Auditing of AI Legal, Ethical, and Technical Approach article. And for all three of my prompts, I sort of wanted to focus a little bit more on compliance standards and how both existing professionals and new professionals entering the field should adapt to this evolving landscape of AI use within financial accounting and auditing. So the first prompt I asked was, in what ways are compliance standards evolving with the increased usage of AI in financial accounting? And how should audit professionals adapt to this environment and broaden their scope in an audit to detect the risks that are associated with AI use, sorry. And basically went into how there's a lot more emphasis on trying to get regulation really built out, but it's just not all the way there yet because AI is such a rapidly changing landscape. It is a bit of a scramble with all the regulators trying to build out frameworks to really standardize a lot of the processes. So for now, there are like enhanced disclosure requirements where firms will at least have to disclose AI's impact on their operations, including its influence on financial reporting, risk management, and strategic decision making. And it also includes detailing AI's role in financial statements and the associated risks. So this is one way that they're able to at least oversee the use of AI right now, even though there may not be super specific or robust frameworks built out to actually have all of the regulations that would really be ideal. Um, and then as far as professionals sort of adapting to this new or increased integration of AI in financial accounting, it actually goes into some interesting things talking about how auditors should develop AI-specific audit plans. So to create dedicated audit strategies that focus on these AI systems, assessing their designs, implementation, and their impact on financial reporting and also evaluating the effectiveness of AI governance frameworks and control mechanisms. And then also went on to talk about how audit professionals should really try to enhance their technical proficiency, try to implement continuous monitoring techniques, and actually collaborate across disciplines as well, of just working closely with data science, scientists, or IT professionals that really have a broader understanding of the AI systems that are in place. And also just keeping up and staying informed on regulatory developments sort of as they happen. So I really liked the answer that it gave. I thought it went pretty well in depth, but also most of it I sort of expected it to say. I know that the regulation isn't all the way built out yet, and some of the answers were a little bit more obvious than others, just like becoming more proficient in the use of AI. But I did like that it talked about collaborating across disciplines and learning from professionals who really come from a field that uses a lot more AI and would have a deeper understanding of it. And then for my next prompt, I said, given the evolving landscape of AI usage, what should young professionals entering the financial accounting and auditing fields do now to better prepare themselves for their careers? And it was a little bit similar to what the output was for professionals that are already in the auditing field. But again, just building that AI and data literacy early. I think this will be especially important for, new graduates like really entering the field for the first time because I think having to learn how to use AI and even the foundational basics of that at the same time as trying to keep up with all of those regulatory frameworks is not going to be the best recipe for success for new professionals. So I really do agree with that response from the prompt of just, it's really important that we take the time that we have now to really understand AI and how data works just so that we can be a little bit more competitive going into the field. And then it also again, went similarly to the existing professionals in the field, but just learning about AI ethics, bias, transparency, and governance frameworks. Again, having a little bit of an understanding of that before going into the field, I think can make for a much smoother transition going from a student or someone in a different professional field and entering financial accounting or auditing. It'll be really important to understand what compliance standards we'll need to adhere to. And the rest of it is very similar to the last prompt, so I'll go ahead and skip to the last one. And this one, I actually, again, wanted to go a little bit further into compliance standards, but also relate it a little bit more to the work that I do. So I asked about what processes are in place to monitor the use of general AI tools like ChatGPT by financial professionals? And are there standards for inputs with sensitive information? And if so, what types of best practices have financial accounting professionals put into place to ensure compliant use of AI? And the output basically said that it's under increasing scrutiny due to concerns about data privacy, regulatory compliance, and ethical considerations. And while those comprehensive regulations are still evolving, firms are proactively implementing policies and best practices to mitigate the associated risks. Um, so it goes on to talk about basically a lot of the stuff that I'll talk about right now with my work. The prompt about, standards for handling sensitive inputs. It talks about data classification or establishing clear categories, redacting or removing personal identifiers before inputting data into AI systems, and just really being more smart about it and trying to apply existing frameworks to AI and just try to make it as even as possible. I don't work in financial accounting or auditing, but I do work for a financial planning and wealth management firm where we actually do have really robust compliance regulations for our use of AI, and they are still evolving as well. But basically now what's being incorporated into our like branch examinations every year is our use of AI and general AI tools like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Perplexity, any of them. Basically, the best practices is to remove any personally identifiable information from, even if we're just typing out an email response to a client, you just use the first initial of their name and redact any sort of personal information so that we can't get in trouble with compliance for that because they will be looking for a lot of that. And there are also AI note takers that a lot of professionals, both in financial planning as well as accounting and a bunch of other industries use. And specifically when it has to do with finance, there are obviously more regulations around it. So we actually have to use an AI note taker that's strictly from one vendor that's been approved by our broker dealer. And we have to have basically a specific version of that AI note taker that has certain frameworks in place already when you purchase the subscription that adhere to compliance standards, like deleting any like actual transcripts of meetings after 7 days and deleting again all personally identifiable information from those meeting outputs. And even then, with the solely approved vendor for AI note taking in our firm, we've actually still experienced a lot of issues with it. Even if it's just supposed to transcribe and summarize, this version of AI still has hallucinations. And so even that takes like thorough review after any meeting to make sure the output actually matches what was spoken about during the meeting, because even just having those meeting notes that tweak something and say that, for example, if I said something instead of my advisor on the notes, but the advisor actually said it, I could get in trouble for basically soliciting investment advice without a license. And we've had that happen before. So I just thought all three of these prompts, especially this last one, were really similar to what I have to do for our RIA's version of compliant use of AI.
Awesome. Well, I think it was really important, like how you were able to talk about like your background in like financial planning, and how like while they're not, it's the articles are talking about like accounting and auditing. There is use cases and kind of similar problems facing like finance, and things that are have to do with sensitive client info and all that. So I think that's also kind of important in terms of just like how to deal with sensitive client info in terms of an audit, because you're dealing with like bank statements and social security numbers and private information. So I think that was a very cool ad. Does anyone have anything else before we wrap it up?
I
All
don't think
right.
so.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, this has been our team. We will get this video uploaded. Hope you enjoyed, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next video.